Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be teaching you part one of this two-part video that I'm gonna make about the basic strokes necessary to get started in brush lettering. There's not really much else for me to say, so let's get into it. Talk about a few things that you'll need. First, you'll need a black brush pen, whichever one you like to use. Today, I'm using the Tombow Fudenosuke hard tip brush pen, like I said, in black. As you can see, it has a smaller tip compared to some larger brush pens, such as the Tombow dual tip brush pens, which I don't have immediate access to, or the Zebra mild liner brush pens. Like if we compare tips, you can see that the Fudenosuke has a much smaller tip, which I personally prefer because it gives me more control over my lettering. But I will make a whole thing about that later. So next, you will need some brush stroke basic practice sheets. Here's an example of one that I just drew up. It has just a bunch of like lines, thick and thin, some curves, some U's, some like backwards S squiggles. These shapes that I don't know what to call them, slanted lines, thick and thin, and the reverse of these shapes basically. But I will get more into those later. And finally, you will need a piece or multiple pieces of blank paper. So yeah, with no further ado, let's get started. The first thing you need to know is basic brush pen technique. The most important thing to remember when doing brush lettering is how you're supposed to hold your pen. Hold it like you would normally hold a pencil, but make sure that it's always at a 40/45 degree angle. You never want to hold your pen straight down and put pressure onto the chip. You never want to hold your pen straight down and put direct pressure on the tip, because that can, one, damage your pen, and two, won't give us the stroke variation we need. So that's the first thing. So you need to make sure that you're holding it always at a 45 degree angle to avoid, like I said, damage to the tip, and so that we get proper line variation. So let me actually change the camera angle so we can see that a little better. So as we can see here, I'm holding the pen to the side, not straight down, not super flat either, just at a nice 45 degree angle. So now that we know how to hold the pen, the next thing to know is how you get your stroke variation. So when doing your letters, to get the downstroke, you need to apply more pressure, and that gives you a thicker line. When doing your upstroke, you apply less pressure, and that gives you a thinner line. And these two different line variations are the basic structure for all brush lettering. So remember, heavier on the downstroke and lighter on the upstroke. So when you're writing your letters, if you're forming, for example, an A, you start the A by going up, light, press harder when you go down, and light when you come back up. And then same with the second part, it's a downstroke, so you apply more pressure. And that's how all the letters are. So now that we have freehanded a little bit, I suggest that you pause this video and just take a moment to grab your brush pen and just play around on a blank piece of paper, just practicing down and up and down and up and down and up. See, I even broke the line a little bit there, applying too little pressure. But just so you can get a feel for your pen, make sure you're holding it the right way, and so that you get used to varying the weight of your line. Just do some like squiggles, maybe some O's, maybe some like lines. So yeah, pause the video here and just knock yourself out. So now that you've had a couple minutes to practice with a blank piece of paper and just get a feel for using your pen, I am going to introduce lettering practice worksheets. This one that I'm using is from the Tombow website directly, and it specifically says for the Fudenosuke calligraphy pens, because as I mentioned earlier, this pen has a smaller tip than their dual brush pen, so the one for the dual brush pen would be too large and wouldn't work for what I'm doing. But I will link both I will link both in the description so that you have the option of whichever one you decide to use, like I said earlier, based on your brush pen preference. So the reason I like these is because they give you a very specific structure. They give you like what it's supposed to look like. Then they give you like grayed out version to trace over a couple times. And then you just get free space to practice like we were doing with the blank piece of paper earlier. So the way you use these sheets, like I said, you just trace. So this one, it clearly has a thick line, so we're going to put pressure because it's a downstroke, and this is an upstroke, so we can use less pressure for thicker and thinner lines. And notice, I'll zoom in a little bit here. Notice that they actually have small arrows telling you whether it's an upstroke or a downstroke, so that you don't have to be confused with how you're supposed to do your, with how much pressure you're supposed to be applying to your pen. So, going back to normal. So I'll just trace all of these. So this is a zigzag. And then the squiggly thing, and then the O. So yes, I personally think that these are very helpful. I didn't know about them when I started doing brush lettering, and honestly I wish I had, because I've helped a couple people learn how to brush letter, and they've told me that these are very helpful. So I will leave the link to the Fudenosuke practice worksheets and the dual tip brush pen practice worksheets in the description for your use. So yes, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and found it somewhat helpful. I am honestly very new at this, and I'm still trying to develop a style that I think will work for me and for the few viewers that I have at the moment. I hope to help all of you in some way, because brush lettering is a thing that I hold very near and dear to me. I really enjoy doing it, and it looks very nice when done right. And so I hope that I can be that person to help you learn how to do it right, so that you may start unnecessarily brush lettering on literally everything you have. I mean, I will sit in class and just write my name using my brush pens for no reason at all. So I hope that this series gives you the ability to do that. Come back in about 2-ish days for part 2 of this video, where I will start to use the knowledge from this video about downstrokes and upstrokes and line weight and the basic curves and shapes, and how we will use that knowledge to start forming letters and eventually words. So yeah, come back for part 2. Bye!